In our final tutorial for the series of drag and drop interactions, we'll just look at how to add a few more features to the final interaction to make it a bit more professional and a bit more refined. So we've tested it. We're happy with the fact that when they get the answers correct, they are navigated or directed to the success screen, and when they get things wrong, they are directed to the failure screen. But we can do a little more than that. For example, when I select my interaction screen and I go to my drag and drop properties, drag and drop panel on the right hand side next to properties, I'm able to set up how many times they can attempt this interaction. At the moment, I've allowed them to try it once, and if they fail, then the on failure action would kick in. So you could set up an infinite number of attempts, or you could set up a fixed number of attempts, and should they get the answer wrong after that number of attempts, they would then be directed according to your failure screen. Now, another quite useful option is for you to enable the failure caption, which is on by default in my particular project, but if yours is not visible whilst creating the basic project, you can just simply activate the failure caption, double click, and then type in the necessary message, to encourage them to keep trying, but to be very clear that they have failed that attempt. Last of all, you could also set up a reset button. And the reset button is going to allow them to reset the position of the objects before submitting. So perhaps they've dragged things in, they're not happy with the position of the objects, they realize they've made a mistake. They can then hit the reset button, drag those source objects onto new targets, and then hit the submit button. And finally, you could also include this interaction in a quiz scenario should you have other quiz or question slides set up in this document. So if I had other slides in this project and they were showing other question types, for example, multiple choice questions or true and false questions, and they were all graded, and this is part of a larger set of exercises, then I could include my drag and drop interaction as part of that entire quiz and also give it points and add it to the total of their scores. So all in all, a very nice way in which to create the interaction, also include it in the quiz format should there be other question types in this document and they're all, taking up part of an exam. Right, and last of all, you would go to your Adobe Captivate Preferences window. So under the quiz settings, in the Preferences panel, I would enable reporting for this project and set up what would consider success or failure, what is required for success to be scored. In this case, I would say the quiz should be passed. I could also determine what kind of data should be reported back to the LMS. Should it be in the form of a percentage or points? That will be under reporting. Under settings, I could give the quiz a name. I could set up an ID prefix so that the LMS can identify it, and then various other settings to enable the questions to be shuffled and for progress bars to be shown, as they're moving through the content, as well as allowing them to move backwards and forwards to previous or subsequent questions, and quite a nice one to show their score at the end of the quiz. But what is also a good one here is, what do you consider to be a pass mark? I would say 80%, just as an example. And then once again, what should happen if they should pass? Now, bearing in mind that this is just one interaction currently, I'm going to rather choose a broader result or a broader consequence for passing or failing the entire quiz, of which this interaction is just one section. And I would say rather, should they pass everything, they then go to a new project, which is now part 2, or the next chapter, or something more difficult. And if they failed, it would open up perhaps a remedial version of the work or an earlier section that they could revise and repeat. So these preferences under the pass or fail for the quiz settings are rather more global preferences for the entire quiz and don't pertain to the one interaction that we made, unless of course it is the only thing in that interaction. Other than that, I would then say okay, and other than that, I would continue testing, perhaps export it to tablet and see how it performed on Android and Apple devices, and then come back and troubleshoot from there if required. So I hope you've enjoyed these tutorials, and I look forward to creating new ones for you next month.